So, welcome to today's session, actually an insider session with experts from Siemens and my person and from IndX with Sebastian. Today, we talk about the digital product passport, which is coming, and what manufacturers and economic operators need to know now. Who are we? So I'm Benjamin Mörle. I'm working for Siemens in the role of product owner for the digital product passport. And today in the call is a colleague from IndX as well. Handing over to you, Sebastian.
Yeah, Sebastian Hildenbeutel. I'm a senior solution consultant and solution analyst at Industries Excellence. We do implementations for software from Siemens and other competitors, and we have today with us the implementation for the digital product pass and the battery pass.
Thank you, Sebastian. And yeah, we're going to cover a lot of content about the digital product passport today. In the end, we're also going to have a Q&A. So feel free to ask your questions in the end. And with that being said, I jump directly into my first slide. And yes, so we see nowadays that manufacturers actually face many challenges when it comes to leading the way to a sustainable and circular economy. So first, manufacturers face a flood of regulatory requirements. So we have multiple regulations in the European Union, like the ESPR, so the Eco Design for Sustainable Products Regulation, or the EU Battery Regulation. But we also have regulations outside from the EU and the rest of the world, which require a tool for product data transparency for a more sustainable and circular economy. The second challenge there is the data exchange in nowadays more and more complex supply chains. So these complex supply chains actually demand kind of a standardized platform for seamless data exchange between the manufacturers, the customers, the suppliers, and all the other stakeholders in the value chain. And last but not least, also customers increasingly prioritize sustainability criteria in their buying decisions, but yet transparency about product sustainability is often still lacking for customers. As I already mentioned, we have multiple regulations in the European Union regarding the digital product passport. So kind of the legal basis here is the ESPR, the Eco Design for Sustainable Products Regulation, which was released in 2024 and is further specified now and in the future via specific delegated acts, also for certain product categories that have been prioritized, like, for example, iron and steel, textiles, aluminum, tires, etc. But next to the ESPR, we also see quite many other legislations that also refer to the DPP. For example, the EU battery regulation, which requires a DPP for all batteries with a capacity greater than 2 kilowatt hour. The Euro 7 regulation, which requires an environmental vehicle passport, or construction products regulation. As you see on the right side of the slide, many more regulations that are on the horizon and that are there for manufacturers to be compliant with. On this slide here, you see the ESPR working plan prioritization of product categories for DPP requirements. So when you see a date here, this is when the delegated act is expected. Actually, there will always be a 18-month delay to allow for compliance with the delegated act. So seeing, for example, for iron and steel, when the delegated act is released in 2026, there will be actually the mandatory obligation to have a DPP for iron and steel in 2027 or 2028 then. So the delegated act, as I said, for iron and steel expected in 2026, also for washing, laundry machines and dishwashers. Then in 2027, we expect a delegated act for textiles, aluminum, tires, and displays. In 2028, furniture, electric motors, and refrigerators will follow. Then in 2029, we expect a delegated act for mattresses and light sources, and in 2030 for mobile phones and tablets. So, but starting first with what is actually a digital product passport? So a DPP is basically a container, a digital container for product information about the whole life cycle of a product and basically creating a single source of truth for all stakeholders. So DPPs provide access to standardized product information, starting from the composition of a product over the manufacturing data, all until the end of life data, for example, disposal options, reuse options, etc. After all, DPPs support product sustainability, promote their circularity, and strengthen the legal compliance of a product. With that being said, I directly hand over to Sebastian, who will explain the key challenges for DPP responsible economic operators.
Yeah, thank you, Benjamin. Rather than keeping this part here entirely theoretical, I will start you off with some examples. One thing discovered during our first battery passport implementations was that around 80% of the required data already existed in different systems. In the beginning, the challenge was known here where the data is and who owned the data. Another lesson was the supplier onboarding often takes considerably longer than companies anticipate, making early engagement essential. We also have seen that organizations with well-structured PLM and ERP systems and environments can accelerate their DPP readiness significantly. So there are some key questions we will be answering in the coming slides. For example, what is changing? Who will be affected? What should companies do now? And perhaps most importantly, what lessons we can already take from the battery pass implementations. From our experience, organizations that start preparing today will be in a much stronger position than those who wait until regulatory compliance. When companies first hear about digital product passport, many assume that the biggest challenge is selecting the right software solution or the right software solution provider. That is usually not necessarily the case. The real challenge is preparing the information that the digital product passport requires. Product information is rarely stored in one place. It often exists across ERP, PLM, MES systems, supplier databases, spreadsheets, and many other sources. So collecting this information consistently, ensuring quality, and making available throughout the supply chain requires collaboration across, not only multiple departments, but even multiple organizations. At the same time, companies need to understand that the evolving regulatory requirements will be ensuring sensitive information can be shared securely and appropriately. From our battery passport implementation project, we've consistently found that data readiness, rather than the software itself, is the biggest challenge organizations face. The digital product passport lifecycle looks like a complexity between stakeholders. It also is important to understand that a digital product passport isn't just a QR code attached to a product. Instead, it's a digital identity that follows the product throughout its lifecycle. When a product is manufactured, the responsible economic operator, or for short REO, I will call it REO in some of these sections, will create the DPP, so the digital product passport, linked to a product. A backup of the DPP will be stored for the digital product passport service provider. The REO can choose them. The DPP can be read or accessed by public users via data carrier like QR codes or data matrix codes, and is made available by public authorities via a central EU hub system. These public authorities store the collected DPP from all different REOs. When it comes to writing data to the DPP, the involved operators are the responsible economic operator for making sure that the latest dynamic data is maintained on the DPP and backup is stored and updated safely. Secondly, the circular economy operator are responsible for updating the DPP after maintenance, part swaps, or recycling. They are verified by having credentials and necessary roles to edit certain fields of the DPP. They also handle the product end-of-life stage. Then when it comes to transferring the DPP, reporting responsibilities, this is done through the REO themselves. They can change the service provider storing the DPP and hand over the digital product passport themselves to other responsible economic operators in case of a change to their company, supply chain, or manufacturing lines. The retained or changed service provider has to make sure that the digital product passport stays available on their end. The last topic would be deactivation of the DPP, so during the end of life. It will be flagged by the responsible economic operator as a decommissioned DPP when the archiving period is over and the DPP doesn't need to be made available anymore. As we can see now, different stakeholders interact with the passport throughout its life cycle. Manufacturers create and maintain product information, suppliers contribute relevant data, customers access selected information, and authorities may verify compliance, as well as circular economy operators can use the information during refurbishment or recycling. All of these parts here demonstrate that the digital product passport isn't owned by one department. It supports an entire ecosystem. This also naturally brings us to one of the biggest technical challenges here. How all of this different organizational data and system data can be exchanged consistently. It is crucial to verify that the data integrity in all supply chain steps, even before they enter the internal systems of the manufacturer, is given and verified. Issues for a product that have been maintained with non-standard or impure data will hamper the entire supply chain and carry over to the final DPP. Most companies already operate numerous enterprise systems. They have an ERP for managing commercial information. They have a PLM solution for engineering data, an MES for manufacturing information. Suppliers even have usually different systems as well. So if every system exchanges information differently, interoperability quickly becomes extremely difficult. This is where standards can become essential. One important example is the Asset Administration Shell, or AAS for short. Rather than thinking of AAS as another software platform, think of it as a standardized digital representation of a product or asset. It provides a common language that allows different systems and organizations to exchange product information in a structured and interoperable way. While the regulation doesn't explicitly require companies to implement the AAS itself, interoperable data exchange is a key objective of the digital product passport. Using standards such as AAS helps organizations avoid vendor lock-in, simplifies system integration, and prepares them for future digital product passport requirements. Our battery passport implementations have already demonstrated how valuable standardized information in this way and these models become once multiple organizations begin exchanging their data. One of the questions that we most often hear is, when should we start? And to be honest, as soon as possible or even now. That would be our recommendation. Not because implementation itself takes years, but because preparation usually does. Before any digital product passport solution can be deployed, organizations need to understand their products, identify the sources and what the systems are, define responsibilities, assess supplier readiness, and improve data quality. Only then does software implementation actually become pretty straightforward. A phased approach is what we usually recommend and is most successful. Beginning by analyzing your product portfolio, identify which products are likely to be affected, map where your information currently resides, and engage your suppliers early. Run a pilot project, and then it's much easier to gradually scale up the solution across your organization. Companies that spread this work over the next few years will significantly reduce both project risk and implementation costs compared to organizations attempting to do this right before the regulatory deadlines. We saw this with other regulations as well, not only the battery pass, but also the GDPR, the General Data Protection Rights, as well as the RoHS for hazardous substance controls. It has a lot of impact. Although the digital product passport is driven by regulation, it should not be viewed only as a compliance exercise. Many of these capabilities required for compliance also generate business value. Improving your product data increases your operational efficiency. Greater supply chain visibility supports better supplier management. Reliable sustainability information strengthens your ESG reporting, and lifecycle information enables circular economy initiatives. So you see, the digital product pass readiness also enables your company for new and upcoming regulatory compliances, as well as making you comply faster and more efficiently. Ultimately, organizations aren't just preparing for regulation, they're building the digital foundation for future products and services. I'd like to leave you with a final thought here. The question is no longer if the digital product passport will affect your business. The question is whether your organization will use the coming years simply to meet the compliance and regulations or build an actual competitive advantage. After this slide, I would like to hand over back to you, Benjamin.
Thank you. And I'm going to hand over by sharing my screen again. And thank you for this very interesting insights here into the implementation of DPPs. Sebastian, you already mentioned that there are many challenges, but one of the challenges is also to select a DPP software solution provider. And this is where we actually at Siemens step in and created an offering for our customers. So we at Siemens, we are kind of in a dual role. So on the one hand, we are also affected by the regulation. We are, for example, affected by the battery regulation with Siemens Mobility, which builds trains that actually fall into the scope of the battery regulation. We are also going to have to create DPPs for our electronic products in the future. And on the other side, we also have an external software offering that we offer to our customers, where we basically offer a platform to create, manage, and share digital product passports. So you can see this here in the middle of the slide. Our Siemens Accelerator native software as a service product, the Siemens Digital Product Passport. So at the core of our product is basically the DPP engine for DPP creation and update. So the DPP engine allows to collect data, to process data, to provision data. And this data usually comes from the customer domain. So this can be the IT systems, like you already mentioned, Sebastian, the ERP, the PLM, MES system, also the supply chain, or can also be live data that come from the products in the field. Our software product also offers an adaptive DPP viewer, also the storage of the DPPs, and sharing and access management, which is quite an important part for DPPs, as you want to make sure who exactly can have access to the data and who can edit the data in the DPPs. Data exchange in our product is allowed via the X networks like Catena-X or Chem-X or Factory-X, or also via the asset administration shell that you have already mentioned, Sebastian. When we have all this data in our system and created a DPP out of it, we can provide it to an external domain. So this can be public authorities like the European Commission, an auditor, or also other supply chain partners here. To dive a little bit deeper into our software as a service offering, so we always say it is designed and built from industry for industry. So coming from Siemens as an industry player with very high standards, we have built an offering that we also use ourselves and offer to our customers. So first and foremost, our solution enables ongoing compliance with regulatory requirements, for example, coming from the European Union, but also from the rest of the world. Our solution offers a built-in interoperability with suppliers, customers, and regulators. That's possible via our open REST APIs, but also via the asset administration shell and the respective standardized IDTA submodels. We also have a supply chain ecosystem integration with our solution via Catena-X, Chem-X, which basically allows a simplified data exchange within specific industries where such a data ecosystem already exists. We also offer a scalable and future-proof architecture with our product. So this allows for scalability towards all kind of product categories. And those product categories and DPPs can also be nested. So we can, for example, have like a vehicle DPP on the highest level, then a battery DPP that is actually linked to the vehicle DPP on the lower level, and then a chemical DPP on the lowest level, which basically contains information about the chemicals that are in the battery. Last but not least, of course, we at Siemens always stand for the highest software quality through our industry-leading product lifecycle management and also cybersecurity standards and certifications that we adhere to. As I already mentioned, we have a very scalable and agnostic solution that caters for DPP use cases for various industries and product categories. So we started once with the battery passport, but now we have created DPPs for multiple product categories like machines, vehicles, chemicals, textiles. And it's very easy for us to create a new DPP for a new product category. So basically all we need here is a new data scheme. We already implemented our solution with quite some customers. One of the first customers was actually Siemens Energy, who implemented our battery passport solution already end of 2024. So what they have done with us is our startup package. So basically a first package for the first 6 months that helps you to get onboarded with the software. Where we also offer a lot of project management to get the customer going. We help with the system architecture integration, the testing of all the interfaces of the APIs. So in the end, you want to create the passports usually automatically via APIs and via the back end and not do it via the front end. So we helped all of this. And after that, Siemens Energy actually moved into our yearly license and is a customer ever since. I think we already saw some slides now, and I don't know how it's for you, but I always, when I talk about software, I like to see the software, kind of get a touch and feel about the software. So I would like to go on now with a live demo of our software application. Please feel free to already scan the QR code that is here in the slide. This will actually give you access to the public viewer of a battery passport that has been created with our software application. So going now into the software, this is usually the first thing when you log into our software is a dashboard. So this dashboard is completely adaptable. So whatever statistics are relevant for you, we can display them here. And then I would like to show you how such a passport looks like. So this is kind of a registry with all the passports that have been created within an organization. Let me switch here to one that it's actually done. I will show you a battery passport. So this is how a passport looks like. So we have various kind of categories where the data is listed here. And of course, the data can be exported via JSON or CSV file. We also have the feature of an interaction history here, where you can see all changes that have been done by any user, also with the timestamp. And of course, you can also edit a passport. I would also like to show you how to create a new passport. So all you have to do is here click on add new passport. Then you can actually select a product. So you already can see here we have battery passport, container passport, machinery passport, so different kinds of. I'm now gonna select the battery passport. Also, we can choose the regulation we want to be compliant with. So this is now the EU battery passport. I can select if I want to create a template or an individual passport. So do now the individual one for the demo purpose. Then the manual entry, you can also do the entry via uploading an Excel file. And then we, last but not least, have to select the category. And now I can basically insert all the data, all the attributes that I have. And what I can also do, what you can see here with the checkboxes, I can assign a data attribute to a data provider. So when I click this checkbox, I can here assign a data provider. So for example, a supplier that you can onboard to the software and then send a data request to. And the supplier will then get like an email notification, can log into the software and can provide the data attribute here. Now we're gonna cancel it. And what you can also do here, or here you would find the data requests. We also have a user management. So you can invite users here to the software. You can select different roles. These are the ones that are actually given by the battery regulation here. And yeah, I hope this gave you like a short first glimpse of our software. And of course, if you're more interested, feel free to reach out. With that, I go back to the presentation. Second. Yeah, so this was the demo going on with the asset administration shell, which actually has been mentioned already here. So the AAS is basically a standard for the digital twin to provide data in an interoperable way. So we can see here two blocks in the asset administration shell. So on the very left side, you see the digital nameplate with kind of the basic information here. Then we have green and red submodels. The green ones are public and the red ones are restricted. And block one is for regulatory compliance. So those are all submodels, including DPP information according to some kind of regulation, like the ESPR or the battery regulation. And then we also have submodels in block two for digital service offerings. So those are submodels with process data, highly enriched data, and you can also charge your customers for access to this submodel. So this can be monetizable. To basically offer our customers a kickstart into the creation of AAS-based DPPs, we have created the DPP 4.0 starter kit, so a platform within our DPP application to create, manage, and share DPPs based on the asset administration shell. For now, this platform supports 3 standardized IDTA submodels, but in the future, more submodels will follow. So for now, it's the digital nameplate with kind of the basic product information that you find now on a physical nameplate as well. Then it's the handover documentation, which allows to exchange complete asset documentation from the manufacturer to the operator. And last but not least, we also implemented the submodel hierarchical structures, enabling bills of materials. So this is basically a submodel for representing hierarchical structures of an industrial asset, like, for example, representing a bill of material. To give you an idea how this DPP 4.0 starter kit can actually be used, we have built a showcase together with the machine building company Engel. So they build injection molding machines, and right now, every machine they deliver to the customer, they also deliver a huge amount of paper with it. You see it here on the left side, it's around 50 kilograms of paper, all the documentation to the machine, causing serious CO2 emissions. We thought, okay, we can do that smarter by using a DPP. So we used the DPP 4.0 starter kit to basically offer a digitally available machine documentation. And we have done that not only for the machine level, but also for components in the machine from Siemens and Bosch Rexroth. So we enabled a paperless and sustainable machine documentation via the asset administration shell. Last but not least, I would really like to recommend to you to start your DPP journey now. As you have seen, you can already start with first DPP use cases, even though there are no regulatory requirements for you in place yet. After that, usually comes the regulatory compliance. So, of course, you want to be compliant with the existing regulations. Then, on top of that, when you already have a lot of data in your DPPs, you can build digital services based on this data. So make the most out of the data you already have. So on the example of a battery, this can be, for example, a rest value estimation based on the data you have stored in the battery passport. Or for other use cases, it can be predictive maintenance based on the data you have in the DPP. And last but not least on the roadmap here, the DPP can also lay the foundation for an AI-driven enterprise. So the DPP basically stores structured information in a standardized semantic on a product level, and this can be a great data foundation for the AI enterprise. With that being said, thank you very much for joining our session, and we would now go over to the Q&A session.
Yeah, thank you very much, Benjamin, also for the short but very comprehensive and informative look into the Siemens solution here. Very helpful. It's a very mature and nice solution here. So for our Q&A section, we mentioned earlier, we got some questions in and we would like to answer them here. If we don't have time to answer all of the questions now, be sure to leave your questions in the chat below. we will answer them as soon as possible. Yeah, one of the first questions that came in was, is this strictly an EU requirement, or will this also impact manufacturers on a global level? Yes, it is correct that the DPP is introduced via EU legislation, and the regulation applies to products placed on the EU market, but the impact actually expands beyond Europe. Manufacturers wishing to place their product on the EU market will need to comply. This also means that suppliers that want to provide material or component material data, as well as traceability data, they will also have to make sure that if their customers place product on the EU market, that they are compliant. We already saw similar effects, as I mentioned earlier already, with the General Data Protection Regulation, as well as the Hazardous Substances Restriction Regulations, that these impacts actually are on a worldwide business-based level. Also, a multinational company that acts as a global player usually doesn't want to have specific regional compliance systems. They want to harmonize their entire supply chain and processes in a standardized way. And the AAS or DPP here in this case would really bring such a thing to the plate here. Even if your company isn't headquartered in Europe, if your products or your customers' products are or end up on the European market, this regulation is likely to affect you. Okay, I see a different question here. Maybe Ben, you can take over. If a company wants to start its digital product passport journey today, what would you consider the 3 most important prerequisites for a successful implementation?
Yeah, I can take this over. So first, I would recommend having a close look at your portfolio and actually analyzing by which regulations this portfolio is affected. And then you basically get a glimpse of what comes up to you in the next years. If you see you are affected by any DPP regulations, I would recommend for the second step to kind of set up a project team, because this is usually a topic that is relevant for multiple departments. You have the sustainability department, the compliance department, you have IT, of course, that is heavily invested here. You would also have procurement department. So many departments need to be involved in such a project. And after setting up the project team and giving them a clear goal and structure, I would go on to the third step. And this is actually having a look at the data which is required by the regulation and where you can find this data in your systems or even in your supply chain, and then reaching out to your suppliers to get this kind of data that is required. And then, of course, you have to select a DPP solution in the next step.
Yeah, thank you, Benjamin. Okay, so I think we only have time for one more question. I'll quickly look. There's another one. How important is it to be implementing interoperability standards such as the asset admin shell? Yeah, I mean, we went over this briefly, or actually in depth, what the AAS specifically is, but not necessarily why the asset administration shell. So to be short, the regulation doesn't really force you to use the AAS structure, but it does require an interoperable data exchange. The AAS came out of consortia based around the regulatory requirements. For example, which already were mentioned, Catena X and Railway X industry, and is widely adopted and updated via a central body called the IDTA, which was already mentioned by Benjamin. Think of the AAS as a common language. Your ERP, PLM, and MES supplier systems and customers may all speak different languages, but the AAS will provide a standardized structure that allows them to understand each other better. Yeah, so I think this is about the time we can spend on the Q&A. If there are any leftover questions and you left them in the chat, we will go through them and answer them as soon as possible in the next 24 hours around about. Yeah.
Yeah, with that being said, thank you very much for joining us in the Insider session today, and have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.